really bad for Eijiro and Rikido from last week's episode because they just got completely destroyed by their teacher opponent. I mean, they stood no chance against Cementos. There was nothing they could do, and it made me believe that all of these teachers were just going to bring 100% of their power into this battle and crush all of these students and teach them a little bit about humility. However, it appears that after watching this week's episode, that some of these students actually can overcome the odds and actually have, dare I say it, character development, learning from their mistakes and learning to work with their actual teammates. That was definitely one of the coolest things about this week's episode of My Hero Academia. It didn't get very deep, mind you, but still, I'm really glad that they're focusing a little bit more on some of the side characters of the series, because frankly, they're just as cool as Deku, Todoroki, and Katsuki Bakugo, although of course they are the cornerstone of the series, and even one of them is one of the key characters in this episode. This one was definitely held up by the strengths of all of the classic characters, who all got to shine in a lot of great ways. So, let's talk about all of the kick-assery of this week's episode of My Hero Academia. So, this week's episode was mostly devoted to the development of the character of Momo and Todoroki. With Todoroki being one of the standouts from the series, he definitely came through his own at the UA Sports Festival, and Momo met great defeat during that time. So these two characters have gone about a very crazy transformation, with Todoroki for the better, and Momo losing a lot of confidence in herself. And this episode is basically an excuse for her to sort of jump that hurdle and reveal that she's incredibly resourceful and not just a giant walking pair of boobs. Despite that, you're still gonna get a lot of Momo fan service, so kick back and relax and prepare to feel creepy. But aside from that, we also get some other great character moments. In fact, I loved the first opening scene where we got to see Fumikage and Tsuyu fighting against Ectoplasm, who, as I've said before, I think just has a really slick and awesome and scary design with his creepy black skull face, his giant trench coat, and ability to spew out this noxious ectoplasmic gas which he uses to actually create clones to overwhelm his opponents. Apparently, he can only create 30 of these at a time, but he also has the ability to create a massive destructive one which is like Kaiju Godzilla-sized. It's insane, and it leads to a lot of great visuals, and I also love the fact that since his arms are constantly tucked inside of his trench coat, he always just sort of uses his legs to attack. Does he even have arms in the first place? There's a great scene where he's actually battling against Fumikage's shadow, and the choreography here is surprisingly thrilling, watching these two incredibly strange beings fight each other, with him kicking in Fumikage's shadow, literally being a giant shadow with claws. It's just really unique imagery that's a lot of fun. And of course, I didn't imagine that Tsuyu and Fumikage would actually have some really great combination attacks, but they did a great job utilizing their quirk abilities to actually try to gain momentum in this massive pillar-like room so that they could potentially escape. And they do almost seemingly get overwhelmed entirely by ectoplasm until they come up with this great plan where Tsuyu apparently is able to swallow just about anything and spit it up as long as it doesn't completely dissolve in her stomach, and she actually took those handcuffs, pukes them up, and then Fumikage uses his shadow to come in really, really close to Ectoplasm and put the cuffs on him. Thus, they are the first team to actually pass. This was a really thrilling sequence, and aside from all the other parts of the episode, including the things with Momo, it was probably my favorite part of the episode. That's not to say I didn't like the Momo development, but I don't know, just this entire scene was handled really well, and of course I'm kind of a sucker for both Fumikage and Tsuyu. They're two characters that I really do love from the series, and I hold them in high regard, and who as I consider what my favorite characters are from the series. But right after that, we get some Tenya Ida action, and he teams up with Ojiro, the guy with a tail. He has a tail, and he's kind of exciting. Look, Ojiro is a cool character, but he's definitely on the lower spectrum of guys that I actually care about. That doesn't make the scene all the more exciting, because there's a nice little twist where they're going up against Power Loader, who's that weird little guy who has the massive Power Loader suit, which is ripped directly from frickin' Aliens, James Cameron's Aliens. It is the same freaking thing. It's an homage to it, and I like it, and it only would have been better if he actually said, "Get away from her, you bitch." But it doesn't happen. But what is cool is that Tenya Ida is able to run across this massive battlefield that Power Loader has just completely taken control of, where the ground is collapsing, and he manages to throw Ojiro out, which sort of sacrifices himself so that they can win. but it makes sense because a hero was able to get away, thus he'll be able to get help to bring people in to stop the villain. It was a really great strategy. And then of course there's Momo and Todoroki. This was definitely the basically bread and butter of this week's episode, and like I said, there wasn't really that much to it in terms of how deep it was. It was basically just Momo sort of getting over her insecurities and realizing how incredibly useful her actual quirk is. And they're going up against Aizawa, who's the perfect type of opponent for them. One, just because he's definitely one of the coolest from the series, that and the fact that he's also incredibly resourceful. And the thing about Aizawa is that despite the fact that his quirk seems nigh unstoppable, there are some weaknesses that these two characters are able to take advantage of. I love the fact that they try to gauge where Aizawa is by making Momo constantly create things from her body, and she starts creating all of these like weird little Russian dolls, the one that have a doll inside of a doll inside of a doll, and when they finally start to disappear, that's when they know that Aizawa is nearby because he's erased their quirks. And they take advantage of this in a number of different ways, and even Todoroki manages to get captured by him, and I love how, like, dark Aizawa is during this scene. Like, he even goes as far as to tossing all of these caltrops, these, like, little spiky things, like, all over the ground, so that if he even tries to, like, burn the ropes or try to freeze through them, he's gonna fall down directly onto the spikes, basically forcing Momo to have to do something. And against all odds, she actually comes up with this amazing plan, which is great. And she was just simply inspired by Todoroki, just to believe in yourself. And that's all it really took to bring her back from the darkness. But she actually does this like really crazy stuff where she creates this thread, which apparently when treated with fire will cause it to harden and turn into some sort of metal. And she tosses them all right into Aizawa, and then has Todoroki use his fire, and it wraps him up, they put the handcuffs on, and they end up saving the day. It's pretty freaking awesome. It was really great finally getting to see her return to her much cheerier self, as she was really just not being able to accept her defeat that much in the UA Sports Festival. This is basically what this was right here, is to just sort of bring her back. And despite the fact that she's not a member of like the main core cast, she's relegated mostly to being a side character, they've done a great job of actually growing her into someone that's a little more than just two-dimensional. In fact, Momo's definitely three-dimensional, especially after this episode. And make sure to stay tuned after the post-credit scene. There is a great moment with Ochako and Yuga going up against 13. Apparently the battle's already started. It's already almost towards the end, with 13 about to suck them up completely, and Yuga looking like a complete fool as always. And Ochako is desperately trying to fight back, wanting to be just like Deku. And when she says that out loud, this gains the attention of Yuga, who actually asks her, does she like him? Ending the episode and making all of the fangirls in the room go, oh my god! So what's the rundown on this week's episode of My Hero Academia? Holy crap, this was a pretty solid episode right here. One of my favorite things about My Hero Academia is that unlike like Dragon Ball or One Piece or Naruto, the fight scenes don't have to last for fucking 20 episodes long. I'm actually okay with shorter battles as long as they have good quality and some good pacing and strategy attached to them. That's one of my favorite things about this series so far, is that a lot of the battles are completely unique, and a lot of that has to do with the crazy powers and combinations of the characters. Frickin' Tsuyu and Fumikage are definitely the main reason I love this episode, watching these two characters strategize and work with each other and utilize every single aspect of their quirk to go up against a really strong opponent, shows how far they've come in the series and why they're characters you should look out for. And that's really what I think most of this arc is going to be dedicated to, is to seeing what these characters can do to improve their strengths, find their weaknesses, and fine-tune and sharpen that blade of badassery. That's what's going on here. It does suck that Eiichiro and Rikido were the ones who actually lost in the first round, and they're probably not going to be able to go to camp, which totally sucks, but in the meantime, they're probably going to go somewhere else where they're actually going to learn to focus on those other weaknesses that they do have. It is strange that a lot of them in this episode, all of them aside from the Ochako and Yuga thing, which is literally up in the air, we don't know if they're going to make it, but everybody else did just fine, and it's really surprising to see that go down, and it's a great way to show, like, how strong these students really are at this point. It was an exciting episode, and to see a character like Aizawa go down, that was surprising as hell, just to say the least. It's also worth noting this episode had good animation. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it definitely enhances the action scenes, and it just makes everything just look a lot better, especially because everything's so eye-catching, and it's really refreshing to be in all of these various settings after spending so much time in dark alleyways after the Stain arc and being stuck in a stadium for the entire UA Sports Festival. I love the more varied settings that we've been getting from this one. It's definitely another reason to check out this episode. This was a solid one right here. I really loved it, and that's why I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. Check it out, My Hero fans. If any of you did watch the episode, please tell me all your thoughts about it in the comments section below. Favorite moments, moments you didn't like, what you hope to see from the next episode, all of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for all things My Hero Academia related. Make sure to share this video with all your friends. Like it, social media, all that shit. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby.